It's always game day in Cleveland. It's the post-game edition as you're in the wee hours or waking up on a Tuesday morning to a devastating loss to the Browns, not only on the scoreboard at 26-22, but the news that Nick Chubb is done for the season, and who knows how much more there could be to that. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. Daryl, thoughts on Nick Chubb first before we get in the game?
Yeah, source tells me that Chubb is feared to have torn multiple ligaments in his left knee, and his season, in fact, is over. The Browns will get official word on that on later in the day on Tuesday. But, yeah, I mean, he is the heart and soul of this football team, and that was a tremendous loss. Difficult to watch, obviously, but just as someone who has covered Nick Chubb since the Browns drafted him in the second round, he is just a quiet guy that goes about his business and, plays the game extremely well at a high level. And so a devastating blow for the Cleveland Browns to lose him for the season. It's the mood in the locker room is, football life does go on, even though everyone is thinking and praying for Chubb. But it's just hard not to feel like that the loss of him hung over this team all night. And so they're going to have to find a way now because Chubb is a major component to this offense that Kevin Stefanski runs. And it kind of felt like they were still trying to run that offense at times, but without Chubb on the field. They were trying to run things for Pearson and for Ford. And, Ford did a nice job. Obviously, Pearson did too, scoring that touchdown. But, yeah, it is a tremendous loss for the Cleveland Browns. And of all the nightmarish Steeler-Browns games I have covered here in Pittsburgh, this might be the worst one.
Well, it all started off with a pick six, just to play into the game. And it was a bad omen going into this thing. And by the way, throughout the night, Daryl, how many different defensive players for the Browns did we see go down? Zadarius Smith out and then came back. Denzel Ward, we were wondering if he was going to come back into the game. Every time you turned around, it looked like somebody was getting hurt.
Yeah, Minka Fitzpatrick, me, got lost for the game to a chest injury. It was a brutally physical game, no question about it. Greg Newsome told me after the game he's okay. Hyperextended his shoulder. Denzel Ward was dealing with some cramping issues. But, yeah, this was just a very tough physical game and, again, a brutal loss for the Browns. Because when you think about it, Andy, the Steelers didn't run a single play in the red zone.
No, none. They got one pass that went through the red zone, and that was it. And by the way, that's the lone touchdown the defense is giving. I really feel bad for the defense because when you look at the numbers over the last 2 weeks, the defense has done everything to win both these games. And the offense, you can't have 4 turnovers, and you can't have a pick six and a scoop and a score.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson's letting them down. There's just no other way to put it. You can't pay a guy $230 million and give up 6 draft picks, including 3 first-rounders, for performances like this. You can't. He had the ball at midfield, less than 2 minutes to play. Right, the dream scenario that you're talking about. You're down 4, and he could do nothing with it. Right, they had no solution for T.J. Watt. They had no solution for Alex Highsmith. Those two basically wrecked the game. Off, when it comes to the Steelers defense versus the Browns offense. And, Watson's got to get it together here. There's just no other way to put it. Like, now that they've lost Nick Chubb, right, it is on Deshaun Watson now to carry this team. And he's going to have to carry this team. And the way he played Monday night doesn't cut it. Just does not cut it. It's not acceptable. He missed throws all night long. He still looks off. And again, you had a whole off season to get things right. And that's all we heard about. And to come in here, and I know this is a tough place to play, but to just not get it done again, at some point the excuses have to end. And at some point he needs to start performing. at the level he's being paid and at the level that the reason he was acquired was because he's expected to perform at. And he didn't do it Monday night. And it was really, really disappointing.
The other part of this game that's super interesting is that there were 6 sacks in this game. And normally you would say, well, let's look at the offensive line. And instead of extending plays, it seemed like Deshaun extended time to get a sack in. I mean, that's the hard part, because you're looking at the offensive line going, okay, did they let him down? I'm looking at 6 sacks in the stats at the end of the game. But I mean, how many of those were because Deshaun didn't throw the ball out of bounds to see another play? And, you know, it reminds me a little bit. And I mean, I know no one's going to want to hear this, but when Baker Mayfield had his first year, there were a lot of those Baker Mayfield plays that were like that. And then Kevin Stefanski kind of reeled him in. But you're not paying Deshaun Watson to be reeled in. Yeah. You're paying him to extend plays. And the problem here is it's a problem. And I can't tell you how many times I looked at the TV and said, throw the ball away, throw it away. You have an opportunity. But Jamal White, who I was sitting with, the former Browns running back, as we watched the whole game together, he's like, that's not what you're paying him for. You're paying him for to extending plays. So you're going to have to live with it.
Well, it's the cost of doing business. Remember, in Houston, he was one of the most sacked quarterbacks. And a lot of those sacks were the result of extending plays, right? They weren't the traditional get the quarterback stuck in the pocket and drop him type of sack. So, yeah, I mean, Deshaun's got to start playing better. He did mention that after the game. He does realize that he's not been good enough, and I mean it starts next week against Tennessee. He's got to bring it, Andy. Like I'll be honest with you, it's starting to creep into my head that maybe he won't. Like, and again, I realize it's only week 2. There's a lot of football to be played, but it's hard not to think in those terms because, again, he had the ball at midfield, was not playing well with 2 minutes to play, and still had a chance to win the game, and he couldn't get it done. The other thing, too, is and he tried to explain it after game. I asked him about the face mask penalties, and his explanation is his hands just were getting caught in face masks. He's trying to stiff arm. He's trying to get guys off of him. And he did acknowledge he has to do a better job maybe of using his palm more and not grabbing, but just using his palm more to stiff arm better or whatnot. But the scene in front of the Steelers sideline wasn't good after he threw the linebacker out of bounds late, got flagged for that, had a conversation with the official. He was barking at the Steelers sideline as well. Look, let's be honest about it. Deshaun Watson's probably not liked all that much around the NFL, right? Guys are probably going to give him, are probably giving him
except for the quarterbacks who are getting paid more since his contract. They're the only ones who probably really like him. But
right, but you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
It just doesn't seem like he's dealing with adversity very well right now. And again, this is what the Browns are paying you for. This is why they brought you here, so you can be a transcendent player. And again, I'm giving him the mulligans of the circumstances that he himself put himself in last year, plus week 1 with the weather. But like the weather was perfect Monday night. There was not an issue here in Pittsburgh with the weather, and he's just. I just think at some point it's reasonable for Browns fans to expect him to start playing like a transcendent player. I think that's what it boils down to. And this was a game the Browns should have won. This is a game that in some ways they needed to win, especially losing Nick Chubb. But now, like, it falls on him. Andy, it falls on him now.
Yeah, I don't think
this offense.
I hear exactly what you're saying. I think you're 100% right. So there are 2 more topics I want to get into on our post-game report here. Again, the Browns lose 26-22. And Daryl, the final play of the game, the final offensive play of the game for the Browns appeared to be pass interference in probably 99 out of 100 situations, with the exception of maybe the official thought the ball was uncatchable, but I think you're supposed to go like that and put your hand over your head if you're going to do that. The bottom line is, and I know a lot of people are going to complain about that play, you had an entire game to not be in that position on 4th down.
100%. And that non-call, I should say, didn't lose the Browns the game. The face mask that Deshaun got face masked that didn't get called, that didn't lose the Browns the game. Like the officiating wasn't great Monday night. That's not why the Browns lost. They lost because they turned it over 4 times. They lost because they gave up, 2 defensive touchdowns to the Pittsburgh Steelers on the first play. And then, of course, the strip sack that TJ Watt was able to scoop up and score on. So, big play, big spot, big no call, but that's not why the Cleveland Browns lost this game, did.
All right, so answer the question that I'm sure Twitter was a flutter about this, or X was X marking the spot on this. Kareem Hunt, it was endless what I was saying. I'm like, Kareem Hunt's not coming back to this team. I don't see it unless you do. I think you'd almost be better off trying to trade a 7th-round pick and get Dearness Johnson back here if that's what you really wanted to do. He's only has 2 carries right now so far this season, and Jacksonville's barely using him. I think your odds of that would be better, especially because he's probably in better shape. I shouldn't say that. I don't know what kind of shape Kareem Hunt's in, but the Browns didn't want him. They had a chance to bring him back. They didn't do it before. What makes you think they're going to do it now?
I agree with you. I don't see them bringing back Kareem Hunt. I could see them bringing in another running back for depth purposes or whatnot, but they have a lot of confidence in Jerome Ford, and let's give Jerome Ford his props.
Yeah.
Big run, over 100 yards rushing, stepping in there. Great job there. Amari Cooper, too. I didn't think he was
bad groin. Yeah.
Didn't think he was going to play, and he had himself a night. So in this very ugly loss, a couple of silver lining bright spots there. But man, like I said, I've covered a lot of brutal Browns losses in this building, and I think the day this place gets raised, there should be a parade in Cleveland, because this stadium is a house of horrors for the Cleveland Browns. And of all the losses that I've covered here that have been brutal, this might be the worst.
All right, let's leave it at that. That's the post-game reaction from Daryl and I. We will have another podcast coming up here. 2 more podcasts this week as the Browns, on a short week, get ready for Tennessee. It's always game day in Cleveland.